The Philadelphia 76ers recently agreed to a contract extension with Sixers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, and that is the best thing that they could possibly do for the franchise. I'm here to break down a couple reasons why. My name is Sean Barnard, as always. Thank you guys for tuning into Pick Swap Media, and let's get right into it. That Daryl Morey was already on a 5-year contract with the Sixers. This deal now extends him a couple more seasons. One thing to note right off the top is that this will now connect him with the date that it will expire with Nick Nurse. So they will be connected on the same date there, the same timeline there. I do think that's relevant. And for the reasons that I think this is a good thing for the Sixers organization, number one, Daryl Morey is good at his job. That I know you can nitpick some decision making, tie in the James Harden glasses that sometimes has fogged his judgment. But the bottom line is Daryl Morey has executed at a high level in this position. That he twice has stared down some really difficult situations as a GM that there is no real textbook for how to handle, that being the Ben Simmons holdout situation and the James Harden holdout situation. It's very rare for a GM to have to deal with those type of circumstances, and I would argue strongly that in both situations he came out on top and put the franchise in a better space because of it. With the Ben Simmons situation, that he obviously made the trade, got James Harden, and while we can have our revisionist history and feel upset of other options, I know the Tyrese Halliburton concept is thrown around there often, but the bottom line is at that point in time, Joel Embiid was playing at the MVP level. Not as good as he is now, but right up there. And this was the true blossoming of Joel Embiid into a superstar that they had to contend that year. And we have to look back at it as it was and recognize that the goal of that trade was to give the Sixers a chance at a championship that year. They got that. It did not work out. And there was no way to really be able to project that Tyrese Halliburton would be this version of himself this quickly into his career. Now, after the Ben Simmons situation and the James Harden wore out his welcome, it did not work out. The writing was on the wall for his ending here. Morey kind of finessed and did a nice job with the James Harden negotiation. That you can argue the professionalism, the honesty, the backbone of Daryl Morey and all the management and how the relationships was for James Harden. The truth of that lies behind closed doors, and we likely will never get access to what was truly said, what was truly promised, and what would those unanswered promises were. Why was Daryl Morey the liar that James Harden called? To this point, I still have not seen enough to think that Daryl Morey is anything concerning in the standpoint that would prevent me from wanting him to be the Sixers general manager. And the end result of this trade was the Sixers eventually did trade James Harden to the Clippers. They got some key members of this current Sixers team with Nicholas Batum, with Marcus Morris, who's coming off a five for five 3-point performance in his last game. Guy coming into his stride a little bit. Robert Covington, an awesome homecoming. And the real meat and potatoes, the main appetizer of this trade was the draft picks that are still sitting on the Sixers shelf. And even beyond just getting rid of James Harden, it allowed them to get a chance to evaluate this true roster, see who's working, who's missing, what type of leap is Tyrese Maxey taking this season, and now look around the league and figure out where is that missing ingredient that puts the Sixers on par with these championship level contenders. Whatever they are missing and whatever Daryl Morey deems to be the ideal fit, he can go attacked with these draft picks and with these new assets that he has to work with. So, and this is not even taking into account when Morey first got to this franchise, he got out of Al Horford's contract, traded Josh Richardson for Seth Curry, who provided some really good minutes for the Sixers team, and then the around the margins moves, adding guys like Kelly Oubre, Patrick Beverly, these veteran minimums that he has brought in. And he's also had the honesty with himself to work out of bad contracts. PJ Tucker, who I still stand by the logic of going out and getting PJ Tucker because Joel Embiid, your superstar, the MVP of the league, named PJ Tucker by name after the Heat knocked the Sixers out of the playoffs. Embiid saying, I've never played with a guy like him. There's no better way to endear yourself to a superstar than going out and getting that very same guy. That is what Daryl Morey did. He did overpay for him, and we are now seeing him out of the Clippers rotation. But for Morey to have the honesty with himself and not be stubborn enough in that decisions to continue hiding it and continuing down that path, he ultimately traded PJ Tucker in the James Harden deal, got them off that money, freed themselves up for some future flexibility, and made the team better because of it. Now, the second reason that I really want to tie in for why this is a good thing that Daryl Morey will continue to be around the Sixers organization is continuity. That for far too long within this franchise, there's been so much turnover from with the players, the coaches, and in the front office specifically. During the Joel Embiid era, it has been Joel Embiid as the centralized force, the structure of this franchise. And that's just not how basketball franchises are meant to be. That during Joel Embiid's tenure here, he's on his third head coach. He's been to 4 general managers. He's had over 150 teammates, and that is just far too much for a player that has only been in the league for a decade. So for Embiid to outlived all these guys, it does feel like there's a good relationship between Morey and Embiid, that Morey does recognize what Embiid wants. It does feel like there's a eye-to-eye comparison or eye-to-eye relationship where they are able to be open with each other, talk, have the same goals, and allow Joel to have some input on some of this decision making. These are all great things. And I do think there is value. Embiid specifically has spoken on this of having guys in place year after year, that you do learn from situations, you learn from each other, you learn how to deal with things, and that having Morey still continuing to be around the organization is only going to help with that. And while you can point to some of the flaws with Daryl Morey, he is not perfect. Nobody is. He has his misses, absolutely. You can't name me a guy that is available around the NBA that I would rather have leading the Sixers franchise. That from a standpoint of having the connections he has, having the influence he has, being the forward-facing public figure that Daryl Morey is, which frankly is rare for a general manager, that when you look around the scale of professional sports, it's very rare to see a guy like Daryl Morey who does step out in the public, who does send his tweets out, who goes on podcasts. That is rare. And I like that about him, that he does face things head on. He does have a good head on his shoulders. He's headstrong in his decisions, and he's got these stones to stare in and handle some really tough situations. That for me, the management of the James Harden and Ben Simmons holdouts were the most telling thing about his character in his job. That he was not willing to roll over and sacrifice to these guys as they were forcing themselves out, as there was all this public pressure, people saying the comments of trade him for whatever, that we'll take anything for Ben Simmons. We just want Ben Simmons out of here, or just get James Harden out of here. I don't care who comes back in return. Morey ignored all that, stared down the barrel, and did not blink. And he ultimately made the Sixers a better organization because of it. Now, at this point in time, there's still plenty to prove with the Sixers, that they're off to a hot start to the year. They've been blowing out some lesser opponents, but the questions still need to be asked of, is this a true championship contender? Can this team reach the goals that they have set in place? And I'm here to tell you that there's no guy that I would rather be the one steering the ship and making these decisions than Daryl Morey. That the perfect combination of having the long-term plans, making these moves, and having the finances in hand, that even if all goes wrong this year, the Sixers will enter this offseason with the most flexibility they have had throughout Embiid's entire tenure. That under contract, it will be Joel Embiid, potentially Paul Reed, depending on the playoff history, because there is a clause in his contract or how the playoffs play out. There will be a blank check attached to Tyrese Maxey, who will get some variation of a max deal, depending on what his qualifications are. That will be impacted by if he makes an All-NBA team, if he makes an All-Star team, all of these things. But Tyrese Maxey does have a blank check attached to his name. And the only reason that he has not been inked to a long-term deal at this point in time is it has been well communicated that the Sixers can get more bang for their buck by going out and signing an additional free agent and then re-signing Tyrese Maxey because of the bird rights and because of the cap rules. So a little dancing around the cap there. That is what Daryl Morey does, but the plan is in place. So if all goes south this season, if things do not work, they bottom out in the playoffs, there will be Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, potentially B-Ball Paul, and then whoever else he seems fit. That we will truly get to see Daryl Morey put his fingerprints on this roster. And I do think it is a good thing to extend him and have a end date for his tenure, because sometimes it is a dangerous game to have a GM without a care for what goes on after him. That if Morey had a contract expiring at the end of next season, hypothetically, what does he care if he trades a 2029 first round pick? He's not going to be around. But now that there is this long term commitment, he's in it as well. I do believe that Daryl Morey is hungry. I do believe that he's learned from his mistakes already. And I do believe that there's plenty of success that he should be recognized for in a way that he is not always. So shout out to Daryl Morey for really making a positive impact on this franchise, for putting it in the best situation that it has been in several years. And for now, we will wait to see what the results will be of the ultimate tenure. If I had to go to bat for anybody else, I'm happy that it is Daryl Morey. We'll see what happens from here. Thank you guys for tuning into this video. I want to hear what you think of Daryl Morey. I was asked to slap a grade on his tenure with the Sixers so far over on Fox Sports The Gambler, and I gave Daryl Morey an A- for his time with the Sixers so far. Let me know if you agree with that or if you have a different grade. Comment that down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we will talk next time right here on PickSwap Media.